Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to Spandana Sphoorti Financial Limited Q1 FY22 earnings conference call. This conference call may contain forward-looking statements about the company which are based on the beliefs, opinions and expectations of the company as on the date of this call. These statements are not the guarantees of future performance and involve risks and uncertainties that are difficult to predict. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Ms. Padmaja Reddy, Managing Director of Spandana Sphoorti Financial Limited. Thank you, and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome you all to Q1 of FY22 financial and business update call of Spandana. By the end of Q4 last year, the business was almost near normal, with collection efficiency hitting 101% in March 2021 and quarterly disbursements touching north of 2,000 crore. While we were expecting FY22 to be a normal year, unfortunately, COVID-2 came back with much more intensity, causing more damage than COVID-1. However, the experience of managing COVID-1 was very much visible in the actions of both central government and also Reserve Bank of India. This really helped us in recovering much faster than COVID-1. While it was very disappointing to have the collection efficiency once again falling significantly in the month of May and business degrowing and all this impacting profitability, in a hindsight, we believe that everything happens for a reason and in a long run, we will have great lessons to learn. Microfinance as a sector has evolved much stronger after every crisis and this is not an exception. We had almost 99.9 to 100% collection efficiency till 2010. We mean like the whole industry, and it sustained almost for a decade. While the credit cost was negligible during this time, there was always a fear that how long this can be sustained. We could not imagine credit costs being at 2 or like 4%, as it was believed that microfinance will have either 100% or 0% collection efficiency. By then, it was not tested against political interference, natural calamities and pandemic that could last for a longer time. Back then, borrowers serviced every single installment as the business model did not give scope to skip even one installment. From 2010 onwards, the industry experienced several massive crises such as AP crisis, Demon, COVID-1 and now COVID-2. While nobody thought that this industry could survive after these crises, as the business is perceived to be very fragile, contrary to the experts' opinion, the industry withstood to all the crises and it evolved much stronger. In fact, it got recognized as an industry of its own and scaled up subsequent to 2010 only. RBI and Ministry of Finance today acknowledge microfinance as a key component of financial inclusion. There was always this question, if a borrower does not pay 1 or 2 installments owing to her financial constraints, would she come back and start repaying installments when her cash flows improve, or she would turn to be a defaulter? This is answered beyond anybody's doubt that borrowers are not repaying with an understanding that they cannot escape from it, rather with a high conviction that microfinance is the most credible source that they can depend upon for their credit requirements. Every crisis helped all the stakeholders to learn many lessons. Only after AP crisis, comprehensive regulation was formulated by Reserve Bank of India for microfinance, which has mitigated the social and political risks. Only those players who can evolve constantly with changing needs and demands of borrowers and are dynamic enough and have agile risk management practices embedded in their processes will be able to survive and be in the business. There has been enough proof for that. The learnings from COVID-1 are immense, which helped all of us to manage COVID-2 much better, and the impact of which can be seen in much faster recovery. This time, central government did not implement nationwide lockdown, and the decision has been left to state governments, which was great. While few states had over 2 months lockdown, few states had less than 1 month. Second wave had varied impact on various states, and the period it impacted was also very different from state to state. Each state government, depending upon the severity in the state, lockdown conditions were enforced. Unlike COVID-1, we did not close even a single branch this time. Borrowers whose cash flows were not impacted could continue to repay all their installments throughout the quarter. Few branches, due to unavailability of staff, particularly in the month of May, few branches could not operate for a maximum period of 1 or 2 weeks. But otherwise, like all branches were operational throughout the quarter. During the quarter, well-being of staff and borrowers was the topmost priority. Unlike last year, many of our field staff were affected by the virus. We provided COVID insurance for all our employees and their spouses with a cover of 3 lakhs. Those who did not require hospitalization were given 5,000 as one-time help to meet the immediate needs, including the cost of testing and oximeter, etc. All affected employees were given 14 days paid leave. We also distributed 50 kgs of rice or atta to each and every borrower, whoever is impacted by COVID, as they could not attend their work for 14 days, and it was really difficult for them to meet their basic necessities. So this quarter, we have taken a conscious call of not doing disbursements, excepting few cases where borrowers needed emergency loan. Once again, the situation turned very precarious, and we had no clue on how long the situation was going to continue like that. Our credit assistants were to spend disproportionate time to reach out to borrowers individually at their doorstep, as center meetings were once again cancelled. Even after spending 9 hours in a day, they could not meet all the borrowers. As against 1,311 crore collections in the quarter, only 216 crore was disbursed. It has broken another big myth in microfinance that borrowers would pay as long as the loan disbursements are on. Collection efficiency was maintained despite the disbursements being a fraction of collections, while AUM grew by 8% from 6,835 crore to 7,390 crore YOY. It degrew by 9% QOQ. By June end, we have 76% of the total AUM, which is created post-COVID, and all these loans have monthly repayment frequency. We transitioned from bi-weekly to monthly as borrowers do not want to commit higher time for attending center meetings in order to repay installments. This has helped us a lot in the last 1.5 years to contain the cost, and also loan officers were not required to pay 4 to 5 visits in a month. Monthly loans have been performing significantly better than weekly and bi-weekly loans, with the collection cycle starting from 2nd of every month and ending by 10th. There is ample time left to follow up with borrowers who have not paid their installments. Monthly loans have 94% collection efficiency by June end, as against weekly and bi-weekly loans having only 54% collection efficiency. Collection efficiency dropped by 3% in April from 101% in March and to 98%. May collection efficiency was very bad with just 72%, and it further improved to 80% in June. Collection efficiency for the full quarter was 83%. By June end, almost all states eased lockdown conditions, and this time borrowers could quickly resume their work, and the collection efficiency improved significantly in July to 93%. So we expect 96 to 97% collection efficiency in August. Going by last year's experience, we did not give moratorium to our borrowers, and so far we have not restructured even a single loan, having seen substantial improvement in July collection efficiency. For the collection efficiency calculation, we considered the demand of each and every borrower, irrespective of whether they paid or not. So 765 crore portfolio has been impacted by COVID-2 due to most of the borrowers not paying one installment in May and very few borrowers not paying two installments. However, we made 20% provision on this 765 crore portfolio, which is impacted by COVID-2. By June end, the GNPA was 4.6% and NNPA was 2.3%. By July, the GNPA and NNPA were reduced to 3.5% and 1.8% respectively. We have a carry-on provision of 577 crore by June end, which accounts for 7.8% of the total AUM. In addition to this, we also wrote off 362 crore portfolio in Q3 and Q4 of FY21. So we also recovered 8.3 crore in this quarter from the portfolio that was written off in Q3 and Q4 of FY21. So Kris Financial, which is a subsidiary of Spandana, and this is an NBFC, and that offers secure loans such as LAP, loan against property, business loans and gold loans, and group loans to households whose income is above the threshold of microfinance borrowers. Performance of CFL has been outstanding in the last 1.5 years. CFL has operations only in AP and Telangana, and these two states' performance has been significantly better than any other state. CFL's collection efficiency for the quarter was 101%. CFL's AUM grew by 170% YOY and 4% QOQ. Revenue of CFL grew by 125% YOY and 27% QOQ. Portfolio quality has been robust with the GNPA at 1.9%. So we opened 15 new branches in the quarter, of which 9 are gold loan branches opened under CFL. So we raised 751 crore in Q1, and we wanted to reduce our dependency on borrowings from banks and raise a significant amount of borrowings from capital markets. We raised 337 crore in a single MLD issuance, and this is the highest ever that any MFI has raised so far from capital markets. While the situation was highly precarious, we maintained high liquidity in the last 6 months. This has increased the financial cost ratio from 7.7% in Q4 FY21 to 8.1% in Q1 FY22, though the marginal cost of borrowing reduced from 11.3% to 10.8%. Our on-balance sheet debt reduced from 5,373 crore to 5,200 crore. So the total cash and bank balances maintained were 1,694 crore, which was almost 20% of our total assets. We deliberately reduced loan officer productivity levels from 600 to 400 to ensure that each and every borrower is met on the demand date. To maintain sufficient bench strength, we hired 600 staff in the quarter, of which 572 are loan officers. There was a slight increase in the cost-to-income ratio, which increased from 21.9% to 22.5%, and this is majorly due to high liquidity we maintained in the last 4 months. Further, interest income was also reduced slightly due to portfolio degrowth. Number of borrowers remained same at 24.5 lakhs, and we added just 16,000 new borrowers in the quarter. Average loan outstanding per borrower is now 30,000, which reduced from 33,000 in the previous quarter. NIM reduced slightly from 15.4% in Q4 to 14.1% in Q1 22, and this is due to increase in the financial cost ratio and reduction in the lending cost by almost 7 basis points. Operating costs continue to be lowest across the industry at 3.38%. Abhiram, which is our group company, contributed just 40 lakhs towards rent for the quarter. Had Abhiram not contributed this amount, operating cost would have been 3.39% instead of 3.38%, and the difference is just 1 basis point. Pre-provision operating profit for the quarter was 226 crore. PBT was 71 crore, recording 6% growth QOQ, and PAT was 55 crore, recording 11% growth QOQ, quarter on quarter. Pre-provision ROE was intact at 11.7%, and post-provision and tax it was 2.8%. ROE was 7.9%, while the normalized ROE was 24%, not considering the provision and tax. CFL made 7 crore profit after tax on an average book of 411 crore, and CFL's share of portfolio being 6%, its share in profit was 13%. So net worth increased 5 times in the last 4 years, from 537 crore in 2017 to 2,743 crore. Capital adequacy ratio was healthy at 42.4%. And the state level and district level diversification is very much intact. 3 largest states, MP, Orissa and Karnataka, now constitute 47% of the total portfolio, and it got reduced from 48%. Only 10 districts have more than 1% of the total AUM, and no district has more than 2.3% of the total portfolio. We continue to maintain 95% rural and 5% urban in terms of AUM, and our agile risk management helped us avoid states with very high microfinance penetration. As such, we don't have operations in Assam, and our portfolio in West Bengal is now less than 40 crore. Happy to share that in July, we were rated by CRISIL, and they awarded us A stable, which is 1 notch higher than the rating we had from ICRA, which was A minus. While we had only 1 rating for a long time, we got 2nd rating done by India Ratings in November 2020, and they awarded us A stable, and now the 3rd rating by CRISIL in July 21. While Spandana continue to be the microfinance institution, we are making efforts to diversify the portfolio across segments and products through our subsidiary Kris Financial, and moving in the direction of having 40% of the total portfolio towards secure loans by 2025. Our gold loan portfolio grew from 20 crore in February to 60 crore in August, and we are very bullish about it. We found a niche market to build gold loan portfolio, and we have been opening branches in Tier 3 and Tier 4 towns in Andhra Pradesh, where each branch can build 8 crore portfolio in less than 2 years' time. Gold loan branches increased from 6 in Feb to 28 as on date. With no COVID 3rd wave, we are very much in line with our business plan, by which the AUM can grow to 10,000 crore by March 22, as we already resumed loan disbursements in August, and on a priority basis, we have been disbursing loans to the existing borrowers whose loans were closed in the last 4 months, and all branches having more than 90% collection efficiency started acquiring new clients. So with this overview, now I'm opening the floor to questions and answers. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may please press star and 1. Our first question is from the line of Shreepal Doshi from Equirus. Please go ahead.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening, and thank you for such a detailed information that you just gave us. The question was with respect to the collection efficiency numbers that you've disclosed. So are these, I suppose these are not against the billing for that month. I think this also includes the arrears. So what would be the number without the arrears for April, May, June, July? And what would be the collection efficiency number for some of the key states like Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Orissa, and Maharashtra against the billing for that particular month?
Yeah, good evening, Sripal. So basically, you know, like it was very difficult period, like once again the first quarter was. So we hardly got any amount like in the form of arrears. So that is why, like, if you look at like the PAR numbers, so there is no significant change in terms of buckets. So our PAR 0 plus, like, still it is 24%, 1 to 30, 14.7%, and 31 to 60, 3.6%. But however, the collection efficiency, like only in July, it has touched 93%, but again in May, it was as low as 70%, which means like almost like 30% of the borrowers, so they did not pay at least one installment. So that is the reason. And in terms of state-wise collection efficiency, so state-wise collection efficiency, of course, like Tamil Nadu, we have only lab branch. So as such, like I'm just looking at June numbers. Tamil Nadu 106%, and Tamil Nadu it is 123%, Maharashtra 87%, and Pondicherry 90%, Haryana 99%, Telangana 105%, and AP 96%, and then Goa it is 88%, and the lowest performing states are Kerala. Kerala it was just 42%, and then again Karnataka in June, like it was very bad. Our collection efficiency was 55%, while it increased to 82% in July.
Okay. So the least performing state is Kerala basically. And which are the other states, like the least collection efficiency top 3 states?
So if I look at July numbers, even Kerala has improved to 57%. Then the least performing state is like Karnataka. Karnataka 82%, Rajasthan 85%, and again Chhattisgarh also 84%. All other states like that above 90, 91%. So for example, MP was 91%, and Gujarat 98%, Goa 97%, and then of course Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Haryana, like they're all about 92, 93%.
Okay. So ma'am, in the state of Kerala and Karnataka, was it just because of the delayed lockdowns, or you saw something else also which was different?
So it was like proportionate to the kind of time like the state was in lockdown. So Kerala, like even now, like some of the districts are still under lockdown. And again Kerala compared to all other states, like it had extended lockdown. And somehow across the state, like borrowers, they have taken a stand that we do not know like how long this lockdown would continue. So we do not know like how much savings that we have to maintain for ourselves. But in May, like the recovery was very, very bad in Karnataka, and every borrower said that we will start from June. And again, as they stated, as they promised, like most of them, like they started paying in June. And then again, July, like there is a big, huge jump from 50, like it went up to 82%. And we are hopeful that like Karnataka will hit 90% in August.
Got it. So we have not given any installment holidays.
And Kerala for us, like it's only 3% of the total portfolio. So because like what we have seen particularly in the last 15 months, the work culture of staff is very, very different from other states. So while like the lockdown conditions were very serious, but still like employees were not willing to travel to villages to meet the borrowers in the first quarter, while like across the country, so every branch was operational, every employee was traveling, they were meeting the borrowers, They were collecting borrowers, they were collecting installments from the borrowers. But the picture that we saw in Kerala in the last 1.5 years was very, very, very different. So the work culture is little different like from the rest of the country, and we are not getting sufficient comfort. As such, like in the last 15 months, we did not disburse in Kerala, and as such, today the portfolio of Kerala is 3% of the total. And even now, like in July, August also, we have not resumed disbursement in Kerala because most of the time, almost 99% of the time of loan officers is spent in terms of going and meeting the borrowers.
Got it. Got it. Ma'am, so since we've not given any installment holidays or restructuring of the loan, so and even then, like our 30 plus, 60 plus DPD buckets are probably finest in the industry currently. So what strategy or what did we try to do different that helped us in sailing through this difficult time without availing something like installment holiday or restructuring?
So basically last year what we have seen is, so last year particularly March to May, it was a harvest period for agriculture, and agriculture was exempted from lockdown, and most of the borrowers they were getting very good wages during that point in time. But however, as soon as RBI announced a moratorium, so borrowers irrespective of having money, not having money, so they were saying that there is a moratorium, we are given an understanding that we don't have to pay now, and there was a kind of anticipation that after 6 months there could be a waiver or whatever. So it's most of the borrowers irrespective of having money in their hands, because 95-96% of our borrowers are from rural, and out of that almost 80-90% of them they work as agriculture wage laborers, and agriculture was very much intact. In fact, there were controls in terms of migrant laborer coming to few areas. The wages went up big time during last year lockdown. Despite that, we did not get 90% recovery because the borrowers were in rural. So they just wanted to make use of whatever RBI, whatever the moratorium that was given by RBI. So we felt that the messaging was wrong. So borrowers did not really get it right. And hence this time we have taken a call that even if the PAR is increasing, so even if we have to make a higher provision, let us do that. But again, let us not give a message that there is a moratorium. So that is why we have taken a conscious call in terms of not giving moratorium. And again, we were able to go back and tell the borrowers last year, you did not pay. As such, your overall loan tenor got extended by 3 months, 4 months, or some, in case of few borrowers, it was 6 months, and your overall cost on the loan has increased. And to make sure that such a thing doesn't happen this time, it is better you pay your installments. And that is how since there is no moratorium, we got 93% in July because borrowers did not really think of availing moratorium this time. And again, whatever the portfolio that got impacted because of COVID-2, which I said 756 crore, on which we made 20% flat provision, though we are very sure that this portfolio will not have higher credit losses than whatever 1 or 2% the standard losses.
And then this 756 crore portfolio is very much part of either bucket, either 30 plus, 60 plus, right?
No. No. So we made a standard 20% provision, and that is excluded from these buckets.
Okay. Okay. So this is not part of the 0 plus, 30 plus, 60 plus, 90 plus.
No.
Okay. Got it.
No. But out of that 756, almost 75% of the borrowers, they skipped only one installment. As such, that is in 0 to 1 bucket. And it should be classified as stage 1, on which we were making only 0.8% provision. But again, since it was a difficult situation and we are yet to get clarity, we made 20% provision on that.
Okay. So, but ma'am, what is this portfolio? Like, what is, if you can just give some color, where would this be coming from? Which state, geography, some color?
So this is basically across all states, but however, as I mentioned, like AP, Telangana, Gujarat, so Haryana, Pondicherry, like some of these states, like they had 98, 99% collection efficiency. And so this is coming mostly once again like from Kerala, Maharashtra, MP, Rajasthan and Karnataka. Because Karnataka picked up very well in July, but like till June, the collection efficiency was not that great. And Orissa.
Okay, and Odisha. Got it. Oh, and okay, I think I'll come in the queue then. Thank you so much, ma'am. Okay, thank you. I'm done with my questions. I'll come in the queue.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
The next question is from the line of Sarvesh Gupta from Maximal Capital. Please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am, and good evening. So this 760 odd crores, which is almost like 10% of your AUM, so you have not classified it under any bucket. So the bucket classification is for the remaining 90% of the portfolio. Is that the right understanding?
Yeah, exactly. But out of 765 crore, almost like 495 crore is in 1 to 30. So had we put them in the normal bucket, the provision requirement was as low as 0.8%. But however, we made 20% provision on this portfolio.
Understood. And I mean, so the way you are looking at it is that again, the rest of the portfolio you feel is, but in the remaining portfolio you have 3.5% sort of a 90 plus as on July. So what is the provisioning requirement that you foresee on the remaining 90% of the portfolio?
So basically, like we have 1,000 crore in 1 to 30, which means like basically these borrowers, they did not pay in May. Almost 99% of them, like they did not pay in May, because like most of the branches, they could not even function for 10 to 15 days, because like all the staff in the branches, they were affected by virus, because all our branches are residential. They sleep, like they stay together, they eat together. So in one branch, like one staff was impacted by virus, means like the entire branch got impacted. So as such, like I'm not really looking at like any kind of losses from 1 to 30 bucket. But if I look at 31 to 60 bucket, we have 265 crore. So from this, I'm taking like, which is very aggressive. So I'm assuming that like 50% is the recoverability. So there like the loss is 130 crore. And we have 80 crore in 61 to 90 days. So there like the loss I'm taking 75%. So hence the loss in this from this bucket is 60 crore. And we have par 90 plus like, which is 338 crore.
Which has gone down to July 250.
Sorry, and as on 31st July, like it is 250 crore. So here I am taking entire 250 crore going into losses. So with this calculation, the overall loss is going to be 640 crore. As against this, like we have 450 crore provision, excluding standard provision. So I think with these assumptions, like there will be an additional requirement of provision to the tune of 190 crore over a period of 1 year.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, over the next 3 quarters, you are going to provide for around 200 more crores if things were to continuously improve in the same direction as we have been seeing in July.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. And this, I think you would be done with, for the August, while the month is not complete, but how have the numbers trended for in terms of billing efficiency in August till now, or for the month, what is the expectation?
So basically, like till 10th, like we have not seen much of improvement compared with July. So we are still at like 90 to 93%. But again, like we expect at least like a 3% improvement, because from 11th onwards, 11th to 30th, so like because all the branch staff, like they will focus only in terms of following up like the borrowers who did not pay like from 2nd to 10th. So in the previous months also, like we have seen at least like 3 to 5% improvement like after 10th. So I'm expecting at least 95 to 96% collection efficiency in August. But for collection efficiency calculation, I have not excluded the demand that was coming from 765 crore portfolio. So we consider demand of each and every loan.
Understood. Now coming to this, your plans of increasing in the direction of secured loan. So any interim target for FY22?
FY22, I think our gold loan portfolio will be 250 crore and our LAP portfolio will be 200 crore, and the non-microfinance group loan portfolio will be, so that is not secured. Basically, like by FY22, it will be 500 crore on a book of 10,000 crore overall book.
Okay, so it's still small. And finally, this new RBI rule on increase where the pricing spread caps have been removed. So by when do you think we can operational? Hello?
Yeah, we lost in between.
Yeah, I was, this new RBI draft rule which has come in where the spread caps are proposed to be removed. Any idea by when we can operationalize it, and what will be the impact on our spreads because of the rule?
I think so till July end, like RBI was collecting feedback from various stakeholders. So we are expecting at least like this to come in force by August end, or like at least before 15 September. And this will definitely, like, because while we were not able to factor the increased credit losses, like while pricing our loans, and of course knowing that like 0.5 to 1% increase in the lending cost doesn't really make any impact on borrowers in terms of paying their installments, because installment wise it will make an impact of 5 rupees or 10 rupees, which doesn't really matter to the borrower. But again, we were not able to factor our credit cost like for several years. And now like freeing up, like it's a great idea. But however, like we should be sensitive to the fact that so the regulation has helped in terms of mitigating the political risk, and we should not be inviting that risk once again by charging exorbitant interest rate. But however, so we will increase by maybe like 100 to 200 basis points once we are allowed to do that.
Understood, ma'am. Thank you and all the best for the coming quarters.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone who wishes to ask a question at this time, they may please press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Sagar from PwC. Please go ahead.
Hi, ma'am. Thank you for the detailed outlook and the detailed data. I have two questions. One is, we've seen back-to-back wave 1, wave 2, and you've seen a lot of uncertainty, as you mentioned at the start of the call, over the last decade. Is there any change in our business strategy in terms of disbursement growth, kind of borrower profile, etc.?
So I think the risk management practices that we are following, like we are right now, they are made much more stricter. So in terms of, for example, like the average loan outstanding per borrower that we can have has been significantly reduced, like in some of the states like Orissa, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, and so there are many changes that we have made. And then again, what we have seen in the last 1.5 years is So the borrowers like who have more than one loan, so somehow they started saying that like I will service one loan. Right now my cash flows are impacted. So like once this loan is closed, like I will service the second loan. And so if I look at like the collection efficiency of interim loan, particularly the second loan that the borrowers have, so it is significantly higher. So for example, like the interim loans have, of course, like the portfolio remains static. We did not grow that portfolio. In the last 1 year, we did not give any interim loans. The impact, higher par could be because of that. But otherwise, like it is almost like 40%. If I compare the par of other loans, for example, like the main loan like it is 5% versus like interim loans having almost like a 40%. And again, like I was always thinking that maybe like the first cycle borrowers, second loan cycle borrowers, whose loan size is lower, so they might be paying versus like the senior borrowers who have higher vintage with the company. So their collection efficiency should have been lower. But again, like it's quite contrast. Above 5 cycle borrower, above 5th cycle borrower, so their par levels are far lower compared to first cycle borrower. But again, like from 5th cycle onwards, like if I look at the average ticket size, it is much higher than 40,000. And if I look at like the average ticket size of first cycle borrowers, it is lower than 30,000. So there is a huge difference in terms of average ticket size. But again, some of the senior borrowers who have very good history, track record, who have been repaying, so I think like they are doing good. So as such, like we are very cautious in terms of acquiring new clients. Not every branch is allowed to acquire a new client. It's only branches like those have more than 90% borrowers collection efficiency are allowed to acquire new clients. So and again, we have now decided the maximum loan size, which is very different from one state to other state. For example, first cycle when it comes to Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Orissa, they like we are not giving not more than 25,000 because like these borrowers like they don't have a history, they don't have track record, so we are trying them for the first time. So that is one big change that we have made. First cycle average ticket size has been drastically reduced.
Right. So looking at the changed landscape, right, what is the kind of disbursement growth that you foresee for the full year?
I think last year we disbursed about 6,000 crore. And so this year again, like last year we could not disburse even in August also. So the disbursements picked up only from October onwards. So it was 6 months. So this year I think like we'll be disbursing about 7,000 to 7,500 crore.
Right. And you just mentioned something very interesting on the borrower's cash flow and the profile. What kind of worst case scenario do you foresee in terms of further stress from the existing book? It's a ballpark number, ma'am. I'm sure you can just hazard a guess going by your experience.
In fact, like I have taken the assumptions very aggressively in terms of 90 plus like zero recovery, and given 61 to 90, I said like only 25%.
75%, that's right.
Yeah, if there is no third wave, like if there is no lockdown, I don't think that like this number will change, like this 200 crore. It is on a very, very aggressive side. But again, for any reason, if there is a third wave, if there is a strict lockdown, but again, so I think like everybody, like be it government, be it people, so be it all of us, like we are learning in terms of living with this virus and with this problem. So
right.
Like while last year it took its own time to resume everything, but this time like because there is a sudden spurt in terms of collection efficiency, disbursement like starting from July. So unless and until like something goes very drastically wrong, I don't think that like our provision requirement will be more than 200 crore this year.
Got it. Got it. Thank you very much, ma'am, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Gaurav from JM Financial. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, ma'am. So, ma'am, I can see in the presentation that you have raised debt of 750 odd crores and you have cash around 1700 crores. But the disbursement was around 260 odd crores. So, what is the strategy going forward in terms of disbursement and growth in loan book?
So in a normal scenario, like we remain super efficient in terms of maintaining very less cash balance. But in the last 6 months, like we were guided by our board and also our management committee. So they instructed us that like we should maintain at least like 4 to 5 months repayment obligation. But however, like that did not determine our disbursement decision. Just to maintain the cash balance, it's not that like we went low on disbursements. Like in the first quarter, while there was so much of uncertainty, so we decided like let us not do disbursements. This is the time to reach out borrowers and again like tell them that like now there is no moratorium. Better you start repayment so that like you will get next loan on time. Your interest cost will not increase. So disproportionate time of loan officers was spent on collections. They did not have time to do loan disbursements. But that is why, like, of course, the cash balance was very high and we kept on borrowing because we wanted to maintain like 4 or 5 months kind of the cash balance equivalent to next 4 or 5 months repayment obligation. But now, so I think with things getting more clear, so we don't have to maintain that high cash balance. And in any case, like it will come down because we are doing disbursements in August.
Thank you.
Thank you. A reminder to our participants, if you wish to ask a question, please press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Shreepal Doshi from Equirus. Please go ahead. Shreepal Doshi, your line is unmuted. Please unmute your line and go ahead.
Sure. Sorry. So, ma'am, if I include that 765 crore portfolio also, which is not part of, any of the PAR buckets, so then our overall stress would be 34.5% sort of a number. Is that fair understanding?
Yes. But again, like that is out of that 490 crore is in 1 to 30 days bucket.
Okay.
Yeah. 0 plus is yes.
419 crore is 0 to 30 bucket basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would be the the overall coverage? So if you can give stage 1, 2, 3 ECL coverage would be helpful, ma'am.
No, basically other than 765, I will come to 765 separately. Other than 765, 0 plus is 1,544 crore in July. But again, that is 0 plus. When it comes to 1 to 30, it is 1,080 crore. So I'm thinking that like we will not have any sort of loss because like these borrowers are genuine. They paid in April. They also paid in June and July. They did not pay only in May. So out of 4 months, like they skipped installment, only 1 installment. So I'm not thinking that like there will be any loss like from 1 to 30 days bucket. That is 1,080 crore. When it comes to 31 to 60, it is 265 crore portfolio in that bucket, and I am assuming 50% unrecoverability. Like we will have 130 crore loss from this bucket, which is 50%. And the next bucket is 61 to 90, and we have 80 crore in this bucket, and I am taking 60 crore loss, which is 75% from this bucket. And 90 plus, we have 338 crore, and I am taking full amount on this.
250 crore will be taken, which reduced.
Sorry. And 90 plus got reduced to 250 crore in July, and I am taking entire 250 crore loss. So if I go back to like 31 to 60, the loss is 130 crore, and 61 to 90, the loss is 60 crore, and 90 plus it is 250 crore. And again, so on that 800 crore, I'm taking a loss of 200 crore. 765 crore. And 765 crore, I'm taking 200 crore loss. So then it is 640 crore, the total provision requirement with these assumptions. And out of 640 crore, now we already have
500 crore.
500 crore. So, but 500 crore has a standard provision also, right?
Excluding standard.
Excluding standard provision, like we already have 500 crore. Then the provision requirement is 140 crore.
Yes.
But ma'am, since since you've taken that 765 crores separately, then that we just have 200. I mean, we have 200 crore of coverage there, but can that number not get deviated because you are anyway feel this is a very risky asset? So in that case, what is the variability, in terms of your loss that can come from that?
No, I'm not thinking that 765 crore is a risky asset, because out of that, in fact, like I made much higher provision on this, because out of 765 crore, 490 crore is like 1 to 30 bucket. So in fact, like I have to make only 0.8% provision, like because it is in stage 1. But again, like now I am taking more than 20% loss from the 765 crore, because out of 700 crore, only 165 crore is in 60 plus bucket.
Okay. If you can say, what are our stage 1, 2, 3 coverages? Like what would be the stage 1 ECL, stage 2 and stage 3?
Yeah, stage 1 is like up to 30 days and we have 1.25% cover, and 31 to 90 days we have 21% cover, and more than 90 days it is 50%.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. A reminder to our participants, if you wish to ask a question, please press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Mayank Mistry from Batliwala and Karani Securities. Please go ahead.
Hello, ma'am. Actually, I have one question regarding there has been a buzz about Axis Bank acquiring stake in the company.
Sorry, Mayank, you're not clearly audible.
Audible now?
Yes.
Yeah, it is better now.
Yeah, so there has been a buzz about Axis Bank acquiring a majority stake in the company. So can you please clarify or comment on the same?
That's completely speculation, and as you know, we don't comment on speculation, so there is no truth in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any participants who wish to ask a question at this time, they may please press star and 1. Next question is from the line of Manoj Oberoi from Yes Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Ma'am, this is Rajiv here. Ma'am, again, this clarification on this COVID-impacted portfolio of 765 crore. So when you've given this PAR metric on slide number 10, is it a part of, so for example, you said that 490 odd crores is in stage 1 and 165 is basically 30 plus or 60 plus. So this portfolio is there in this PAR graph, right?
That is in the graph. It is there. It is there or it is not? It is not there. No, basically, like why we have not included this is, so as per regular aging, as I mentioned that like any portfolio, if it is in stage 1, we were making only 0.8% portfolio. But our stat auditors insisted that like though 90% of 765 is 1 to 30 buckets, they insisted us to make 20% provision on this entire 765 crore portfolio. So as such, like since it carries like much higher provision than the other buckets, so we did not include that like in this graph also it is not included, right? No, it is not included.
Okay, and this 765 crores, bucketing will be what you have mentioned, right? 490 crores will be in bucket 1 to 30. The rest will be 30 plus.
Yeah, 30 plus.
30 plus. And they've been provided at a higher rate.
Yeah, in fact, it is 60 plus.
60 plus. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And this, ma'am, PAR numbers that you have computed will be on the loan assets on the balance sheet or on the AUM?
The total AUM or our own balance sheet?
Total AUM.
Total AUM.
Okay. Yeah. And the provisioning number of 577 crore will be all encompassing, right? Including the accelerated provisioning that we have done on the separate portfolio of 765 crores, correct?
Yes, exactly. That includes the standard provision.
Okay, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any participants who wish to ask a question at this time, they may please press star and 1. Our next question is from the line of Sarvesh Gupta from Maximal Capital. Please go ahead.
Ma'am, just one clarification. So this 765 crore portfolio, how was this ascertained that this needs to be treated separately from the rest of the AUM?
So basically, it was impacted during the COVID second wave, and we did not give any moratorium, and we have not done restructuring. While we included in the regular buckets and on 500 crore out of 490 crore.
That I understood, ma'am, but I wanted to understand because all the customers were impacted by COVID second wave. So how did you arrive at this 10% being impacted differently from the rest of the portfolio?
It was like the borrowers whose portfolio was 765 crore, they missed either one installment or two installments out of three installments, while the rest of the borrowers, they paid all three installments. For that particular quarter, we looked at how many borrowers, every borrower had three installments due, but the remaining borrowers, they paid all three installments, but borrowers whose portfolio was 765 crore, they missed either one or two installments.
But somebody who has paid partially but all three installments, would that get bucketed in 765 crore?
Yes, even if somebody has paid partially, included.
In 765?
Yes.
So anybody who has shown even any delinquency in any of these 3 months of Q1 is coming under 765 crores.
Exactly, yes.
And remaining are fully compliant, basically, remaining 90%. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And secondly, ma'am, in August, how has the disbursement trended? Because we have been meaningfully lower than some of our peers in July because of a conscious decision, as you said. But how are things trending in August, and are we now back to disbursements, or will it take some time to come back to normal?
No, August, I think we have so many borrowers, almost the 3 lakh borrowers whose loans were completed in the last 4 months, and we did not give loan. So I think we will be doing the 1,000 crore disbursement in August.
Okay, understood, ma'am. Thank you, and all the best for the coming quarters.
Thank you.
Thank you. A reminder to our participants, if you wish to ask a question, please press star and 1. Our next question is from the line of Nilesh Parekh from Goldman Sachs. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, ma'am. Good evening. Sorry to pivot back to the 765 crores of the COVID portfolio. So, ma'am, if we were to treat this separately, then the PAR data between March and June should not have materially changed, right?
No, this is an addition, right?
It's an addition.
Yeah.
No. So the data that you provided on the slide, that 20.
Okay. It doesn't include, since it doesn't include the 765 crores.
Yeah, then there should not be a movement, right, between March to June. But we are seeing a big movement. So what explains that? Because outside of that portfolio also we are seeing bucket changes, right? So if you can just talk about that.
Nilesh, because generally we have only one collection.
No. Like any portfolio which is impacted is not included in the graph.
Correct.
So which means like the March PAN numbers and so we have not included zero paid borrowers in 765 crore portfolio.
Sorry, ma'am, I lost you there. Ma'am, it will be helpful if you can, maybe not right now, but later put, add a slide kind of including all the portfolio dispensations that you have given, but, comparing the PAR data on a like-to-like basis, because this is somehow getting a bit confusing, ma'am.
Yeah, it's a 3.2 to 4.6%. There is a 1.4% increase. I could see that, yeah. And 4.8% becoming 5.7.
Sure, Nilesh, we taken your advice and we will re-upload in our website after giving comparison in terms of the PAR portfolio.
Sure, including the dispensations like the COVID wave 2 portfolio, because they help us compare. The other bit, ma'am, was on the DA market, right? Means how are we seeing any traction there? Because this used to be a significant component of our borrowings, right? So obviously activity is kind of reduced, but are we seeing some early indicators of pickup there?
Yeah, in fact, in the last 2 quarters, like we have done 200 crore with Bank of Maharashtra, 300 crore with Bank of Maharashtra, and 60 crore with Piramal. But however, compared to what we have done about a year ago, this is nothing. So that is why, like in the assuming, like anticipating this kind of situation a year ago, so we started diversifying the funding sources. We knew that while the estimated credit loss by any bank was less than 2%, and again the minute that they see it is more than 2%, they will slow down till we get back to 2% kind of credit losses. So we diversified our funding sources big time, and that is why though we were not able to raise significant funding through DA, but again the overall funding did not really get impacted because we raised almost 2,000 crore from capital markets in the last 1 year. So the DA funding has been replaced by NCDs and MLDs, and we started working with a number of arrangers who could raise money from HNI market.
And ma'am, what is the... Sorry, please.
But again, the bankers, some of the banks, for example, Bank of Maharashtra, about a year ago, pre-COVID, they have done direct assignment, and again, post-COVID, again, they have done 300 crore. So bankers started looking at DA once again, but again, it might really take some time.
And we used to do, as you mentioned correctly, that we used to do a significant portion of our borrowing through DA earlier. Now, if there is a credit loss experience in that portfolio, how does it get settled, ma'am? Because this is a direct assignment. So, how would this get settled? Because would we need to take, on legal basis, need to make provisions on that because it's a true sale, or how would you kind of compensate the...
It's a 100% true sale, and we cannot pass on even a single rupee without collecting from the borrowers. So those losses need to be absorbed by the respective banks only. But however, when they are doing the next DA transaction, so since their loss estimate will be higher, so while earlier we have done it at 8.5%, it was always sub 9%. But this time when we did a deal with Bank of Maharashtra, we did at 10%, I think.
9.8.
9.8%. So like it was 100 basis points higher than the previous deal. So the the cost will increase by 100 basis points at least. They should recover from that, but we cannot pass on anything without collecting from the borrowers.
Sure. So the provisions that we are carrying is on our book, not on the technically to be adjusted against book rather than the AUM, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, ma'am. All the best.
Yeah, we have not made any provision on DA portfolio. No.
Sure. Okay, great. Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that would be our last question for today. I now hand the conference over to Ms. Padmaja Reddy for closing comments. Thank you, and over to you, ma'am.
I thank you all for your time and look forward to meeting you all again in the next quarter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Spandana Spurti Financial Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you all for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.